What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Tropical storm Gabrielle has finally formed. It is currently a tropical storm heading potentially towards Bermuda. It's currently over parts of the main development region, generally moving to the northwest. We also have another area of interest behind that we're going to talk about today. So we have quite a few things to go over, a lot of hurricane runs, a lot of new data and information to go over with you guys. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it right here. Starting off, this is the page for Gabrielle right here. Let's go ahead and pull up the public advisory and show you what we have right here. Gabrielle forms over the central tropical Atlantic. Forecast to remain over open waters. 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Pressure of 1,006 millibars. Moving north-northwest at 22 miles per hour at this current point. And tropical storm force winds extend outward 175 miles from the center, particularly along the eastern side of the storm, mainly because this still is dealing with some shear that it needs to get through and dealing with a few other things that it's going to have to get past. But ultimately, we do have our 7th named storm of the season right here with Gabrielle, and it is forecast to become a hurricane. And going over the discussion right here, we can go ahead and show you this right here. Satellite imagery this morning depicts that a large system is not well organized. That the large system is not well organized, rather, with an elongated circulation oriented from the north-northwest to south-southeast, and containing a few embedded swirls. The advisory center is a mean center of those swirls, with the associated convection well east of the position due to the southwesterly shear. While it doesn't appear so from effective satellite data, excuse me for stammering right there, a recent scatometer pass indicates that upward of 40 knots is present, generally northeast and southeast of the general circulation. Although the system is at best marginally well defined, there is enough data to support an initial intensity of 40 knots or 45 miles per hour, and the depression is named Gabrielle. Little strengthening is anticipated in the next 48 hours, as Gabrielle faces an unfavorable shear environment from an upper-level trough and a possible center reformation, and the forecast intensity remains near steady through Friday. By this weekend, a more conducive environment is anticipated, which should allow for gradual intensification. Gabrielle is forecast to become a hurricane by 96 hours. The NHC intensity forecasts remain fairly similar to the previous cycles, but it should be noted that there remains a considerable spread in the solutions, and the overall forecast intensity confidence is low. Gabrielle is well away from land and about midway from the Cabo Verde Islands. But however, based on the recent trends, this system will pass well east and north of the Windward and Leeward Islands, but interests in Bermuda should monitor the forecast over the next few days. So here's your initial forecast right here. Expected to strengthen up to a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm in the next 12 hours, remain that way until Friday. Then it's expected to start intensifying up to a strong tropical storm and then eventually a hurricane by the weekend. So we're definitely going to want to watch out for that. It does need to battle quite a bit of conditions and quite a bit of shear before it starts to intensify. Likely will slow it down for the next couple of days, and then things will start to ramp up. Even we're noticing it here on the hurricane runs, and we're noticing it based on the observations as well. So that's what you have with Gabrielle. We're going to go ahead and show you the cone once again. Expected to move to the west, to the north-northwest, then make a more westerly turn right here, and then while still moving north, and then starting to make that turn back to the north-northwest as it approaches Bermuda. It's expected to become a hurricane by that point. Bermuda, you are in the cone of this, so you're definitely going to want to watch out for this. Initial peak with this is expected to be a Category 1 hurricane. However, I've looked at a lot of other models. They're indicating quite a bit stronger as well. So we're going to have to take a look at those and pay attention to that here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But that is the first thing we have with Gabrielle right here. The other thing that we're going to be talking about today is this area of interest right here that is currently over parts of the eastern tropical Atlantic. So here's the situation that we have for you. A tropical wave located just east and southeast of the Cabo Verde Islands is producing an area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are only marginally conducive, and any development of the system should be slow to occur, while it moves westward at 15 to 20 miles per hour across the eastern and central portion of the tropical Atlantic. Regardless of development, the system will likely bring areas of heavy rain across the parts of the Cabo Verde Islands later today and Thursday, 10% in the next 48 hours. 20% in the next 7 days. We all remember what happened with Aaron before it became a tropical storm, how it became such a massive flooding issue for a lot of the Cabo Verde Islands. 7 people were actually killed from this. So just because this isn't designated and just because this isn't really well organized doesn't mean things can't happen. And if you're tuning in from the Cabo Verdes, you're definitely going to want to pay attention to this and keep a very close eye out as well. But ultimately, those are our 2 areas of interest in the Atlantic that we're going to want to talk about, and we'll go ahead and move on to satellite imagery. So here's your satellite imagery for you guys right here. We're going to start with Gabrielle and do a quick analysis on this as well. In terms of what we're seeing over there, Gabrielle really doesn't seem that much like a tropical storm. This is more one of those very shear type of situations right here where it's going to need to battle through some shear. It's going to need to continue to produce convection for the next few days. And then once it gets past that shear, it'll have a much easier time getting its act together. One thing that it does have going for it is the convection, because it does start to move into a more of a drier environment. I'm noticing that as well. The shear's definitely not helping with that. But as long as it keeps producing convection, and for the most part, it's been doing a great job of doing that, it will hold and it will kind of remain consistently on the tropical storm side of things. And even through this morning, you're still seeing that convection being produced, and you're seeing a lot of fight out of Gabrielle, and definitely starting to see a lot more of this dry air getting mixed out right here. So you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that moving forward. But ultimately, it needs to do 2 things over the next couple of days. It needs to keep fighting the shear and needs to mix out some of this dry air over here before it can start intensifying. That's probably why the NHC is only going at 50 miles per hour for the next couple of days before starting to intensify a bit more. I don't blame them for this, and this is something I was looking at as well. Even the hurricane models don't have this intensifying right away. Like, we're not going to see this rapid organization and then just blow up in intensity like we saw with Aaron or anything like that. No. What we're going to see with this is a more gradual sense where it's going to take some more time to organize, take some more time to breathe, take some more time to grow, and then once it gets more consolidated, once we have a more consolidated structure, it will have a lot easier of a time going. So at this point, this does look like a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. It may not seem like much right now, but especially with the conditions over the next few days, this is a scary 45 miles per hour, if you ask me, just because of the conditions it has ahead of it. Once it mixes out that dry air, and in my opinion, it probably will do a decent job of it as long as it keeps producing convection over the next couple of days. And in fact, you can arguably say in the last 48 hours, it's been doing a good job of mixing out a lot of this dry air over here. It's been definitely seeing a pretty considerable decrease of it over there. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and go to back to 90 frames just to show you this. Basically, what you had was the system starting to run into some dry air right here, seeing more convection being produced over here to the northern side of it. Right here, especially right off the outflow region as well, is that you're going to want to pay attention to. But ultimately, you do start seeing this dry air getting mixed out a bit more, especially on the northern side of it. You're seeing a lot of that outflow pushing out and really allowing for a more moist environment to take hold. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. I do think that in order for the system to fully consolidate, you're going to need that relocation of its center, most likely more towards the convection for it to get its act together. But by and large, it's been doing a good job so far of fighting this dry air, producing convection, and just getting its act together where it needs to. And you're definitely noticing it's trying to get its act together. It's just the shear that's becoming an issue with this. So that's what you have with this. And even after daytime has passed right here, you're definitely noticing more and more convection just firing off and allowing for the system to keep going at this current point in time. So that's what you're dealing with right here with Gabrielle. In terms of what we're seeing with our other area of interest over in the Eastern Atlantic, still pretty disorganized. right here. But if you're in the southern Cabo Verde Islands, you are definitely getting some heavy rainfall with this. You're definitely going to want to watch that flood threat as this moves through. We're going to want to watch and see what happens over the next few days to see if this develops or not. I was a little worried about Gabrielle kind of maybe influencing its track and stuff like that, but I'm not as concerned now as I was yesterday, mainly because Gabrielle is expected to move more to the north. And as long as the system remains weak, it's just going to push further to the west. And we'll have to see what happens. Also, a little concerned about the shear as well to see if this will develop or not. But by and large, it's just a situation that we're going to have to watch and monitor, and we'll keep you updated on this here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, especially in the long run if this just continues to push further to the west and take its time to organize. So now we're going to go ahead and get to the juicy stuff, actually. We're actually going to go ahead and first go to our current storms, and we're going to look at the track intensity models right here. This is quite a bit of a spread on what we're seeing right here. Here is your track guidance right here. The track models are kind of all over the place after 48 hours. There's no disputing it's going to be moving to the north and then to the northwest for the next 48 hours. But then we start seeing a huge split right here, with majority of them have it kind of remaining to the northwest, but some actually have it driving further to the west, especially the hurricane models. Right here, you're looking at the halves B, the halves A, the H-Wharf, definitely driving it further to the west. Same with the H-Mon as well. You just see a considerable spread with this. So the forecast confidence with the Gabrielle is actually quite low given the circumstances and given the fact that it's still taking its time to organize and consolidate as well. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to, and that could be the determination of whether this impacts Bermuda, whether it doesn't, whether it moves further to the west of Bermuda, then whether it moves further to the east. There's just really not a lot of confidence with it this time around. I really wish there was, but unfortunately there's not so much I can say about it this time around. So that's the track models. Here's your intensity guidance. The intensity guidance is also pretty tricky as well. Yes, you have the halves B blowing it out of proportion. You do have the H-Wharf and some hurricane models getting up to high-end Category 1, low-end Category 2 right here, but you see such a massive spread with the hurricane models. This is such a tricky forecast to consider right here because, number one, does this battle the shear? Number two, does it battle the dry air that's in it? It's both doing a good job of that right now, but we'll have to watch out and see what happens. There's just a lot of unknowns over the next 48 hours that the system needs to solve before it can get its act together. But by and large, as long as it keeps producing convection, I would not be surprised if we see stuff ticking up on the upper level and more on the higher side of intensity at this current point. So that's something to pay attention to with these intensity guidance as well. It's very tricky because of just basically we need to wait for what happens in the next 48 hours. So that's what you're looking at right here. Let's go ahead now and talk about some of the models that we're seeing, just the hurricane models and the current observational runs as well. So here's what we have with the European. We're going to start with this, then we're going to get to the rest of the runs. European once again takes its time to organize and develop, gets up to it down to 1,003 millibars, gets up to maybe 50 miles per hour at most, and it's going to take its time. It's going to wait until it gets towards the southwestern Atlantic once it consolidates and gets a better core of it, and then it starts to intensify at a very quick rate as you get down to even the 960s as it moves east of Bermuda right here. You're definitely looking at potentially Category 2 to Category 3 intensity with this system, still with what the European is forecasting, so we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. And then another interesting tidbit happens where it just drives due east, heading towards potentially the Azores Islands before becoming an extratropical cyclone and crashing into Greenland or Iceland over there. So that's what you're seeing with the European forecast. Looking at the GFS, we'll go ahead and pull that up. We'll use the 0Z GFS right here. 0Z GFS is also kind of interesting. Actually pushed it further to the south right here. Actually, hold up a second. I do want to say something about the 0Z GFS, especially considering what we're seeing now on the ground with the observations. 0Z GFS had a lot of initialization issues with this, so there's not really much I can say other than, yeah, this had it really not developing, but yeah, we have Gabrielle right now, so I was talking to the guys about it last night. I was telling them, yeah, I don't trust the GFS. We're going to go ahead and throw this out. very quickly. I just wanted to kind of take a quick pit stop over here to show you that. Here's your Canadian run. We'll go ahead and show you the 0Z. Canadian run has the system trying to consolidate, organize, and then starts to intensify as it approaches Bermuda right here. Category 1 hurricane strength is anticipated according to the Canadian right here. In terms of our other area of interest, it does start to organize and develop right here, but it does take more of its time to do that, and the Canadian ultimately starts to drop off its support. But there is one little tidbit I do find interesting right here, and that is what's going on with the Central American gyre. The GFS and Canadian have been kind of spotty with this, but in the next 5 days or so, the Canadian does want a system to organize and develop in this part of the Bay of Campeche right here, and potentially move to the north along the Mexican coast and potentially make some impacts towards Texas. This is the only model that has supported this at this current point, so please do keep that in mind. But the gyre is always a threat, and you're definitely going to want to watch out for it, especially going into October. And we'll have to pay attention to it here on the channel. So that's your Canadian run. We'll go ahead and show you the Icon run as well. Here we go. Here's the Icon for you right here. Icon's pretty interesting. Still has this organizing and developing. Remains a tropical storm until we get to the southwestern Atlantic, where it rapidly intensifies to a 970s millibar system and either makes landfall or a quick close pass to Bermuda right there. So you're definitely looking at a strong system possible with this, especially once it gets past the shear and mixes out more of the dry air. It just needs to do those two things first, and then it's off to the races once it enters better conditions. So that's what you have with the Icon. Now we're going to go ahead and show you some hurricane models to show you what exactly is going on. We'll start with the H-WRF for you right here. We'll go ahead and pull up for you the main sea level pressure and 10-meter winds. So you have the system organizing and developing. It does take its time to kind of consolidate, I will say, once it gets past all the shear and the dry air and mixes all of those out and consolidates into a better core, especially after 3 days. You're going to start seeing the system really start to ramp up in intensity right here. Strong tropical storm to weak hurricane strength already by 4 days out. And then as we get to 5 days out, the H-WRF really wants this system to quickly organize right here. And you're going to want to watch and see what happens. In terms of if it will intensify further, we're not 100% sure. But a 978 millibar system is equivalent to likely a high-end Category 1 hurricane in this scenario right here. So you're definitely going to want to watch out for that. Here is your HMON right here. The HMON, similar situation. It needs to consolidate first, but once it does, and the HMON actually has it consolidating somewhat quickly, actually, once it does, it will be a very interesting situation once it happens. It will end up getting it up to hurricane strength according to this model. We'll have to pay attention to it. Here is your HAVS A run. Right here. The HAVS A has the system organizing, consolidating. It does have a few issues right here. For starters, it has it kind of getting up to a 994 millibar system as a strong tropical storm to weak hurricane by the time we get to 2 days out. I personally do not think that's going to happen. It's just going to need to take its time to battle that shear and dry air, but once it does, all the models are agreeing on the system becoming a hurricane at this point, and potentially even strengthening after that, as some of the observational runs are showing. And lastly, we'll show you the HAVS B, similar situation going with this right here. It starts to actually get its act together in the next 3 days, so September 20th, actually, then it really starts to ramp up. This is a bit of an outlier compared to what we've seen previously, but the HAVS B does want the system to become potentially a major hurricane with this as well. So what you're looking at right here is you're definitely seeing that spread. You can kind of understand why this is tricky to forecast. What I will say to you and kind of boil this down to is what happens in the next 48 hours will be very pivotal as to what happens with Gabrielle, whether it becomes a hurricane, whether it becomes a tropical storm, whether it consolidates and all of that. It will be very telling to know what happens with that. And what I will tell you is just be patient. We'll keep you updated here on the channel, and once we have a better idea of what's going to be happening, we'll kind of do further updates from that. In terms of streaming, tentatively, we are scheduling a stream for Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, unless something completely unexpected happens. Cough, cough, 91L, cough, cough. And we'll keep you updated on the schedule after that. But right now, we're definitely going to just want to be on the wait and see mode type of situation, and we will watch it here. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you'd like to help out, hang out, or ask us questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that will be in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.